Now we're going to jump right into this. Our next panel session, I will just introduce our moderator, or reintroduce, I should say. I'd like to welcome back Malcolm Hale, the VP of Strategic Accounts at PulsePoint. Malcolm's going to be leading this discussion with a stacked panel of marketing and industry experts from pharma. And I'll hand things over to Malcolm immediately, but the topic is harnessing personalized AI journeys to enhance the HCP experience. So please join me in welcoming Malcolm and obviously Avinash, Evihn, Wayne, Myles, and Mayank as participants on this discussion. Thank you.
He said esteemed. That's funny.
Great. Thank you very much, Simon, for the kind reintroduction. Although I have to say I've never felt more boring as an individual than when you ask me for a fun fact. And 2 days straight now, I've got nothing. Last night I thought about doing something absolutely wild to break a Guinness World Record, stand on one leg all night, something like that. Opted to watch the Yankees in the World Series instead. Don't regret it, but have to do something very, very interesting after this. So as Simon said, we've got an incredibly stacked panel here, some of the heaviest hitters in the industry to keep with the baseball thing. So I'll keep the intro short. I mean, Wayne even literally wrote the book on the customer experience, so I'm very honored to be here with everyone. One thing I will say, though, with this panel is that I think it's going to bring together a lot of the themes and a lot of the discussions we've seen over the past day and a half or so at this conference. I think at least half the topics, half the talks, half the presentations have touched in some way on connecting with the HCP. And I think one thing we can all be certain of here, one thing we can definitely all agree on, is that it's never been more interesting to connect with the HCP. The amount of data that we have on our customers, the new incredible technologies we have to do very meaningful things with that data. It's probably not as fun connecting with the HCP as it used to be. My grandfather was a physician. Those farmer reps took him on some incredible fishing expeditions, things like that. But we'll definitely trade fun for interesting and kind of more mind exercises, things like that. So in this panel today, we're going to talk about some of the complexities of doing that. As much data and as much technology is available, it's not easy. How do I pull it all together? How do I break through internal barriers, external barriers? We're going to talk about all that, some of the misconceptions, misperceptions about leveraging AI in the HCP experience, and then, of course, talk about the future as well. Before I begin, or before we kind of kick off, I do want to say all the panelists' opinions here are the opinions of themselves. They are their own opinions, not to be taken as reflective of their overall organization's point of views. This is really a safe space for industry conversation, open dialogue. Tomorrow morning, we'll all go home, put the company hats back on. Tomorrow night, we'll all go home, put our Halloween costumes on. But for now, we'll keep it very safe and just about the betterment of dialogue across the industry. That said, panelists would love if we could all introduce ourselves. Maybe Mayank, we'll start here.
Thank you, Malcolm. Hi, everyone. Mayank Agrawal. I head the commercial excellence function at AstraZeneca for oncology business unit. And as you may know, commercial excellence spans across a lot of different functions like launch excellence, compliance, brand planning, and most importantly, the customer excellence function. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Myles Lawless. I head up digital and omni-channel marketing for Corcept Therapeutics. Omni-channel is in my title, and I'm sure all of us know exactly what omni-channel is, and I'll get one definition if I asked, so we won't ask. We'll talk about it later. But my role really is to understand how do we get information in the right hands to make informed decisions.
Wonderful. Avinash?
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. Avinash Prabhakar. I am an HCP Marketing lead at Glaxo, and I've been an oncology marketer for the last 8 years and use AI more and more every day. So looking forward to the discussion. Thanks for having me.
Great. And I know, Evan and Wayne, you've already spoken today, but maybe just to round it off.
Yeah, once again, last few roles have been around omnichannel marketing, of course. And essentially, it's my job to design digital customer journeys and work with all the different stakeholders to put together and implement them.
Thank you again for having me. So my day-to-day mission is to infuse the customer into our ways of working, into our brand promise, and just in our DNA. So that's a snapshot of what I do.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. So with that, let's begin. Let's talk a little bit about how we got here today. So, first question, what has changed over the past 12 to 24 months, 2 years or so, with respect to being able to personalize the HCP experience? How did we get here today? Avinash, would love to kick it off with you.
Yeah, thanks, Malcolm. So as I mentioned, personalized AI journeys are very much mainstream today. They weren't mainstream when I started as a marketer 8 years ago. I'll give you 3 examples. One of them, actually, Shin and Abigail spoke about this morning. I came in a little bit after they started, but dynamic field-based targeting is how companies target customers today. Gone are the days where that Excel spreadsheet that comes out in January and you just refer to it all year long with your A, B, and C targets, if you're in the field as a rep, is what you use to figure out where you're going to make your calls every day. Now, you have a dashboard in Viva. It tells you your top 50 targets. It tells you why they're in the top 50. And not only that, it tells you who are the people that are surrounding that same HCP that you can visit on the way there and on the way back. And you can also send them non-personal promotion messages to happen right before or right after your visit with them. That was not existing 5 years ago even, but that's how we do it today. And I appreciated that presentation from Shin and Abigail. 2 other examples for me are acronyms. Audience Identity Management, Extended Reach, and Automated Media Orchestration. If you don't know what those acronyms mean, then you got to read up on it and get up with the program really fast. The first is AMXR. The second is AMO. One of them is offered by one of the sponsors of this event that everybody knows. Those 2 technologies allow you to do one-to-one personalization to doctors, to HCPs, which is my job. Think about that. There's no more segmentation, breaking a 15,000 target list down to 5,000, down to 2,000. I can communicate one-to-one with a doctor that has a need for information right at this moment and deliver a customized message to them, and I never could have done that before without the technology we have available today. So those are 3 examples, Malcolm.
Fantastic. Thanks, Avinash. Evan, thoughts?
Yeah, just to kind of build on that too. And I talked a little bit about this in my presentation, but yeah, the automated media optimization thing. I mean, it's the integration and the ability to kind of take all these signals that we're getting from these different places. For example, web-based signals, areas where accounts are already going in and engaging with your brand, and put them into a centralized location and then kind of push them out to all these different venues whereby we're able to deliver unified messaging seamlessly to all the different HCPs we're interacting with. So yeah, I think it's really just technology sort of catching up to the vision that I think a lot of us had 5 years ago, maybe even more than that, and making it a reality.
I think that's a great point, going back to Wayne's the funnel. I don't think any of us will ever look at the funnel the same way, but for those of us who kind of buy in at least on the funnel, and now we've kind of added the second part of it there as well to make it a full bow tie. It was a lot of it, at least in pharmaceutical, was very conceptual, here's what we can do in strategy and slides, and now we actually start to have technologies like some of the ones that Avinash talked about that can actually make that happen. So it sounds like we're sort of starting to see things come to fruition more so than just kind of putting it on paper and then just blasting our physicians with ads across everything. So this next one, despite everything having changed pretty recently, would love to get takes on why we do still struggle. There are lots of folks who will talk about omni-channel, but ultimately a lot of them aren't necessarily doing it, and there could be a lot of reasons why. Would love to hear your thoughts, and anyone can begin here.
Yeah, maybe I'll kick it off. I think probably a couple of things to sort of, well, first of all, let's get back to first principles. What is omni-channel? And we could spend an hour just talking about that. And specific to this topic here, AI, it's not new. We think it's new because the hype is new, but machine learning's been around since 1952. So we start talking about sort of programmatic media and the ability to personalize and get to an N of one. Machine learning and AI combinations, that's been around for a long time. It's just how we are applying it in the industry. So it's important to sort of contextualize the things. And so we talk a lot about sort of data, again, a generalization, contextualize it. For AI, it's about understanding really what we're talking about is a very narrow definition of AI. We're talking about narrow AI, right? So one of the three capabilities, it's the one that's around today. If you go back to 2011, we know that we've got Siri came out. So we have to sort of be careful in this industry about getting caught up in the hype and the terminology. So Gen AI, rightly so, has a lot of the buzz. But how do you apply that in the industry we're looking at? So I think we have to, first of all, before we even worry about how do we apply it, let's agree on what are we actually talking about. So just to give you kind of a couple of examples, so limited memory AI, that's really what ChatGPT is about. We talked about sort of reactive machine AI. We all know that. Anybody got Netflix? You ever see the recommendations that it gives you? That's AI. So I think that's probably one of the first things. So I'll sort of stop there and see what other folks want to react to.
Yeah, I'll jump in a little bit on when you said the word struggle, that really triggered me. So, so this morning I talked about Close Encounters of the Third Kind, a Steven Spielberg movie. And when I was kind of doing research to figure out what year it was actually made, I came across a movie that he made called Artificial Intelligence. And it was in 2001 that movie came out. So even the vision of AI was, to your point, Myles, isn't new. So when you talk about struggle and omnichannel, so I see it, and I'm not an AI skeptic by any means. I'm just a pragmatist. I've been here before. I went through the .com revolution back in the day, so I'm sort of informed by that. What I see is that we have some debts to pay that we've not paid, and AI is not going to solve those debts for us. So one is the culture debt, and I think it was Robert earlier talked about the silos. Like no amount of AI is going to fix those silo problems. So if you're going to put AI and build into silos, it's not going to solve anything. And the other thing I think is to some extent, a lesser extent, but the data debt we have to pay. And that data debt is really around, we've not fixed our data problems. We have data all over the place. But at the end of the day, even today, and you can all admit it privately, but all the analysis you do, it ends up in a spreadsheet. And you're using that spreadsheet to communicate and using it to process, but we're not there yet when it comes to just the basic data layer. So we've not paid that debt, so the struggle comes from the culture debt and the silo represented by silos, the data debt represented by the lack of insights that we are able to generate even today. So.
And to build on that too, I think it's about the incentives that are built in with your organizational structure too. A lot of the time, data is kept in silos, and there isn't the sharing that needs to happen, the kind of collaboration to really take advantage of generative AI and just everything you can do around bringing data into one place, because either A, the resources aren't there, B, maybe they're not being prioritized, there's other things that are more incentivized by the organizational structure, or C, it's advantageous right now because of the way things are set up for people to keep their data to themselves and kind of keep the dependency in place. So yeah, I completely agree. It's a cultural problem, and without solving that, you're not going to really be able to get the best out of what generative AI can offer.
And Mayank, I know when we spoke last week, you talked a little bit about some of the struggles from an internal perspective and overcoming them, compliance, things like that. Can you build on that a little bit here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Malcolm. So, undoubtedly, AI, ML, Omni-Channel, that is bringing tremendous productivity gains. There is 120 zettabytes of data that I learned yesterday going to be floating by 2030. That's huge. One of the things that we should understand, why is AI not growing at the same pace in productivity in the pharma industry as compared to some of the other industries like tech, like consumer products? And the answer is regulations. We are in a highly regulated industry. One of the external factors that I often think about is compliance. Are we ensuring that the data that is floating around, which is going to help a physician make a decision based on prescription or based on their patient, are they going through the checks and balances and the business controls that we have identified? And perhaps that's an area that requires all the more development. So, in my experience, there are 3 areas which I identify as super important for any technology company to think through. Number 1, documentation and transparency. There's tremendous requirement in the industry for documentation wherever there is transfer of value. Transparency in what was the need for that interaction. And I know that digital channels sometimes circumvent that idea. But if you look at all the channels that require customer experience to improve, it's not just digital, it's also face-to-face. Speaker programs, for example. That's, I think, a recent IQVIA report said that speaker programs remain number 1 or number 2 access point for educational experience for the docs. So that's number 1. Number 2 is compensating the doctor on fair market value. That is often not really kept up to the standard. But there is pharma code, there is OIG, you can look it up. And the third one is essentially, is the claim being accurately presented? So I really feel that AI generated or AI productivity in compliance tools can really help collectively bring the customer experience even better.
I think there's a way, though. I think if you sort of step back for a second, sort of just think about the last 2 days and all of the topics that have been covered. There's sort of a way to sort of weave these all together. I totally agree with the compliance. I mean, if we just look at data, whatever we mean by data, we can go down a rabbit hole on that. But if we just think about this industry, there's 20 states today in the US that have high complex data privacy regulation. That's 20 states. So already that's a pretty significant thing that we have to consider. But then we sort of go back to what Wayne was talking about in his session, I believe it was today, although it's been 2 days, it could have been yesterday, I think it was today, it's today. There is a friction point between not sufficient numbers of HCPs to meet the demand of patient needs. And there is a gap in our understanding as marketers in the industry and the sort of going to the cultural element, sort of right information, right time, right channel. So it's, there's productivity that you get from AI. Omni-channel, I've got to be in every channel because omni means every, so it should be everywhere. Let's create as much content as possible and get it out there. And part of the sort of the value proposition and how people are recognized as sort of marketers historically has been output driven. So how many pieces of materials did you create and get them out the door? Whereas we have to think and challenge ourselves collectively as an industry to go, we need to focus on outcomes. So as was spoken about yesterday, less is more. And so I think we do have to have this reflective moment around how do we define success and why are we doing the things we're doing, and then how can these technologies help us in addressing that problem, as opposed to sort of tail wagging the dog and going, hey, I've got this new shiny technology thing, but solution, find me a problem to throw it at. So I think there is this sort of fundamental sort of inflection point that we're at as an industry that we have to challenge ourselves to think differently.
Yeah, I can build on that if you want, Malcolm. I totally agree with Myles. And if I come back to something Evin said earlier in his presentation about the audience, ultimately today, as Evin said in his presentation, you need to know your audience really, really well. And if you're still putting your messages in all the channels that are out there, you are totally marketing the wrong way, because you're wasting energy and you're showing up in places that your customers aren't actually at. You should know what are the 3 channels that your customers prefer for the type of content you're trying to deliver, and only show up there and make the content that they want to engage with. So I totally agree with that point. It's not about being everywhere all the time anymore, by far.
Now, going back to Wayne, some of your comments this morning around burnout from physicians. They are real people. They get burned out. It increased quite a bit, leveled off a little bit, but still about half of them, I think you said. I love your thoughts on that with respect to kind of what Myles and Avinash were just talking about with Omni-Channel. How does that reflect on burnout, things like that?
Yeah, so there's 2 ways we could go. We could use those mini channels, or excuse me, those every channels and Omni-Channel to add value and help HCPs help patients as a basic mission, or we can weaponize it and it can become additive to their stress and their issues. Because what's happening is with all these, if you take these channels, multiply them by all of the pharma companies in the room, and then you add in AI onto that, and then you counter that, or you counterweight that with the number of patients that HCPs have to see. Now, if they work for large institutions, not Dr. Smith's family office anymore. It's really large institutions, and they have to spend a lot of, they only have so much time to spend with patients. It's a factory mill. It's not necessarily great, but that's the way it is. So you put all those things together and you create an extraordinarily high stress environment for HCPs. And if we're adding to that with our channels, then that's a problem. So we have the opportunity to actually add value to that equation. So that's kind of some of my thoughts around that.
Yeah, I think if you sort of go to the sort of the spirit of why we do what we do, we want to help HCPs, help patients make informed decisions, and you sort of can get lured into this innovation, right? And so a lot of us work in sort of customer experience excellence, or omni-channel, digital excellence, AI excellence, all these sort of things. And the sort of watch out is to sort of understand that innovation is not just additive, as Wayne's describing, because you're just adding on top of. Where's the value prop in that? Innovation is also reductive. What are you taking away? And the more that you can take away, that's the sort of the white noise, if you will, the better you are about being able to have an elevated experience, an elevated conversation to move that needle, whatever your definition of the needle is and where you want to move it to. I think that's another one of these sort of like first principles thinkings to get back to. Like, challenge yourself. It's not just, I got to keep adding stuff. What am I doing to take things away? Because that actually is adding value.
I would, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was just adding to what Wayne said, and this is a really good question around customer experience. Like, when do you know that it's too much, or how do you declutter the inboxes and the incoming messages to the HCPs? One of the areas that we are looking into is identifying, can the next best action algorithm intake some of the preferences which are not often pervasive or evident. That is the part where machine learning and AI can help, because when you connect the segment of the customer and the micro preferences, along with some of those non-pervasive preferences, I think that can clutter a lot of the volume of interactions that we are making. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say too, I think if you're doing good marketing, ultimately it shouldn't contribute to stress, because marketing at its core, good marketing is helping the people you're marketing to solve the problems they're trying to solve, and ultimately get to where they're trying to get to, helping them achieve the result that they're trying to achieve. I think if you're in a place as a marketer where you're trying to be everywhere all at once, and you're ending up in places where people don't want you, or perhaps reaching them at times they don't want to be reached, you need to reevaluate and kind of, as a few of us have said here, take away some of that stuff. And I also think you need to look at your numbers, right? I mean, ultimately, if you're putting things out there and you're not seeing that they're generating the kinds of engagements and that kind of moving the needle and getting people to actually interact and engage with your brand and whatever you're putting out there, perhaps you shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I think if you stitch those pieces together, so I totally agree with you. Let's be provocative for a moment here. If you're not doing NBA's next best actions, I mean, it's table stakes. You're not doing digital, let alone, don't even think about Omni. You're not even doing digital marketing. So you have to be thinking about that. So this is one of those nice sweet spots between AI and machine learning that you can definitely move the needle for your organization. And the value prop is not only in elevating the experience for your customers, HCPs or patients or whoever they may be, it's also about simplifying the complexities. And if you simplify the complexities to what Evin is suggesting, because now you're focused on, okay, not all data is created equal. So how do I move from data to information? How do I move from information to knowledge, and from knowledge to wisdom? This is the sort of foundational pieces that you have to put in place. So, sort of resist the lure of the shiny, chat GPTs and all of these things, which definitely have a value. But what is it you're trying to solve for? Understand that, and then figure out how do you solve for that with the solutions that you want to put in place.
Absolutely. I think it seems like a theme is kind of emerging here, probably what a lot of folks weren't necessarily expecting to hear. I think a lot of folks are probably expecting to hear, here's how you do Omni-Channel, because that's what we want to do, because that's what we put on the slide deck. That's what's in our, our presentation here. But it seems that it's really like, yes, we have all the data, but instead let's use that data to decide what we want to do. If Dr. Jane Smith has never, ever engaged with any of your media in any way, shape, or form, it's not working. Stop engaging, with Dr. Jane Smith via your media, and that should hopefully contribute to, less burnout at the individual level, because obviously everyone's going to be unique and different. So it's actually kind of taking that data to the next level and deciding what to do with it, to reach those folks where they want to be reached, where we're not going to, quite frankly, just kind of contribute to struggles that are existing outside of, what we consider to be the digital ecosystem. Switching gears a little bit back to AI and its sort of ability and on the content area, I'd love to just kind of talk a little bit about precision content using AI. And with everything being said today, like there are obviously certain physicians who are going to be more receptive and less receptive. Avinash, understanding your experience in rare disease launches, can't get more precision than that. Would love to understand what kind of content you see actually tends to shift behaviors for those HCPs who can shift their behaviors.
Yeah, glad to do it, Malcolm. But first I want to thank Wayne and Myles. I feel so much better about myself now because, we actually use data to trigger specific communications to individual people that need that information right at that moment. So we're not blasting things out to everybody all the time. We're just showing up right at the moment of need. So I'm on a launch brand right now. We're 1 year into launch. It's going extraordinarily well. It's in a rare disease in hematology, blood cancer. And we have 11 use cases that we've built, all based on data. I'll just talk about the AMXR use cases, which are search-based. If you haven't heard of it, my guess is you all have heard of it. But if a doctor is searching for my product or a competitor product or searching about the disease state or happens to have gone to our website, those are 4 examples of use cases that trigger communications to that individual doctor. And they do it immediately. Within 72 hours, we don't show up everywhere. We show up in the 6 places that we know that doctor is likely to be. One of them, by the way, helped out by our moderators company, PulsePoint. But that's basically how we reduce the communication, but make it much more impactful. And you're actually serving a need that the doctor has at that moment. And yes, 90% reach, 25 to 30% engagement consistently month over month over month, and we're over a year into the launch.
Right, so not just about reaching them because we want to reach them because we can, but contributing to, what they need to do, providing them with that right information just at the moment and not any other times and very, very select groups.
72 hours, it's over. The user journey's over.
Any other folks on the panel experience and anything to discuss regarding, content specifically for HCP?
Yeah, I just sort of want to go back to a point. So to be clear, I'm not saying Omnichannel is not a value prop and we should not be doing it. What I'm saying is be thoughtful about it. So if you think about sort of these pathways and all these sort of nodal connections and the channels that you look at, I totally agree with you. Understand the pathways and where you want to be, and then understand what are those channels that are relevant for the moments that matter, not for you, but for your audience, and then determine what you turn on and turn off. And this becomes kind of a precursor to the question that you asked. So if you start figuring out, well, can I be looking at AI to help improve content generation and speed of, getting it through systems, dealing with the complexities as you described, about that approval process. But this is where you start thinking about, okay, we've all learned as marketers to be doing A/B testing or multivariate testing, but it's a process that we do manually or historically have done manually. This is something that's relatively easy to do with AI. So as you start thinking about use cases, again, what's the problem you're trying to solve for, and then how can you apply it to help solve that problem and speed the process?
Absolutely. Thanks, Myles. So shifting now towards kind of other industries, what are other folks doing well with respect to this overall topic and conversation? Would love to hear about, from everyone on the panel, I think, though. Wayne, you've sort of outed yourself as the outsider, and that's kind of your brand right now for this conference coming in. So we'd love to start there.
All right, I will start there. So we had a conversation earlier, or a comment earlier about Netflix, and Netflix is using AI to deliver content that's aligned to what we're interested in based on our usage patterns. So what would happen if we stopped thinking like marketers and started thinking like Netflix? What would our world look like? And could we also use AI, use technology to build self-service? Because what that experience that Netflix delivers is freedom. It delivers choice, it delivers sort of like self-service, and that to me seems to be the model that's working. That consumer model applied to pharma or to corporate marketing in general, that seems to be the approach rather than the weaponized marketing in our email boxes. So how many folks in here have emails in your email box right now, or your multiple emails from companies that you probably worked with before, bought things from, and you haven't opened them? So HCPs are no different. So how can we leverage and use what Netflix is doing in that architecture and apply it to our world?
Evan, know you've got experience outside the industry as well, and thoughts on this. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think it just going back to the culture comment too. Somebody said this yesterday. I think we were talking about prioritization of just protection of the process, protection from potential legal issues. I mean, that tends to be at the forefront of pretty much everything that happens in the life science industry. And I think that's not necessary, but also it's stifling. I mean, you see things happening in other industries. There's just a general willingness to go out there and test and try new things. To go out there and to develop things generatively and put together kind of content that's so much more based off of real-time activity and real inputs that we're getting from customers. And I think that we're forever going to be just a bit behind, but at least we can get a little bit less behind if we can elevate culturally the need and I guess the increasing need moving forward to test some of these strategies.
Yeah, I work at a company right now where the CEO sits on the board of Microsoft. Emma is her name. And she's made it crystal clear because she sees exactly what we should be doing every day when she goes to those board meetings, and she sees that we're not doing it. So culturally, from the top down, the mandate is clear. Not only catch up to everybody else, but get to the front of the pack in all industries and show how pharma can do this despite all the limitations and regulations that we have to overcome.
Yeah.
So we're on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was a comment yesterday in one of the discussions which really resonated, and it was around sort of, well, let me first say, sort of looking outside of the industry. I think, I work in the San Francisco Bay Area, very close to Silicon Valley. My background is as a technologist. So we are very comfortable with fail fast, fail forward. So long as you're learning, that's okay. Okay, we are not at all comfortable with that in this industry. So that's sort of one of those mind shifts that we have to sort of start embracing, which is part of this cultural change. But the watch out is, and the comment that was made yesterday about, like, we do relatively good job of pilots and testing and learning, but we do a pilot, get the results, do another pilot, get the results, do another pilot, get the results. We never actually stop and go, oh, interesting, was that a good result or a bad result? And I would argue all results are good, whether they're what you thought you were going to get or whether they underperformed. Once you sort of stop, pause, and learn from it and apply it to what you're doing. So I think that's one of the sort of key things I would like to see as more as an industry do. Get comfortable with sort of failing fast and failing forward, thinking it through, have a hypothesis. I mean, it's a scientific method. Have a hypothesis, test it, and see what you get. And then pause to sort of ingest the learnings from that and apply it to something else.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the winners are those who can make simple the complex. And I can't stress more, Myles, what you were saying. Have that focus. Understand the problem. Have the focus. What is that one KPI that can make your launch successful, right? Work on that and leverage all the capabilities around that.
Fantastic. So for this final question, we'd love to do sort of around the stage here. Maybe Mayank, we can start back with you, but this is the kind of the wild predictions of the future kind of questions. Would love to understand, how do you see AI evolving in the future to help customize that HCP experience?
Yeah, I think two areas, one of which I covered around compliance. I really feel, by the way, nothing against compliance functions are working extra hard in our industry. They are fantastic. The MLR reviewers, they keep us safe. But I think there is an opportunity to leverage AI in the compliance world to help productivity gains around, like, is there a chatbot that can allow you to ask a question? Hey, is this something that is feasible? I mean, that's just going to save up so much productivity gains due to the long MLR cycles. The second one is around, planning tools, and I do see, some of the great productivity gains. So I was speaking to Rajat. I think, products like those can really help enhance productivity with engaging with our customers. And it's not just about the customers, it's the internal stakeholders as well. Launch cycles don't have to be 24 months long. It can truly be 6 months long, but you need that A team working on that launch, but most importantly, have the productivity tools that can allow to squeeze that 24-month cycle into 6 months.
Myles?
Yeah, if I sort of take off my cautiously optimistic hat and try to go big picture, I think, we can either be on a utopian side of things about all the benefits and what AI can bring to this industry and to the audiences we serve, or we can go the dystopian and the things around the concerns about misinformation and disinformation and elimination of jobs and all this sort of stuff. I would hope as an industry that we would start going more and more towards the utopian side of things. And what that translates for me is we sort of, as marketers traditionally, we think about our HCP audience and creating those journeys and content and experiences. And then we go off and we think about the patient and the caregiver and the content and the experience. And we know, and we've seen the data, and even in Kevin's presentations that kicked off the conference, like we know that those audiences are in channels and they're consuming information, not necessarily the way we thought they were going to consume information. And so there's this kind of Venn diagram overlap between those two things. And probably the most powerful, I think it was John's presentation yesterday about, obviously, he has a propensity towards being, an early adopter of technology, but that should become the sort of the norm as we hopefully move forward about understanding that AI, and we're not there yet, but it can have a role to play in empathy. And how do we marry these journeys together? And while you want to target content for audiences, understand that it overlaps. And so how can we move beyond this narrow AI into the next realms of AI that get into the empathy fields?
Avinash, wild predictions?
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I'll just build on that. I'm more on the utopian side myself. But, if we don't all seek to become AI experts, then you will end up on the wrong side of that equation. You'll be out of a job because the jobs will be done using AI and all kinds of technology that we don't even probably know exists yet. So become an AI expert is my suggestion. That's what I'm trying to do. And if you're at a company that doesn't get it, leave. Go somewhere else. Find a company that actually gets it and is trying to get to the front of the pack like the one I work at now. But they're not the only ones. Because if you set yourself up in an environment where you're surrounded by people that are trying to accomplish the same thing, you can make a lot of more progress and really get to that ideal user experience for individuals that I think we're all aiming for.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say the same thing. I think generally, there's a lot of fear around it, of course, but if you can learn to leverage it, if you can, my general attitude towards AI is it's here whether we want it to be or not. It's not going away. If we're not leveraging it, then those that are competing with us are going to leverage it across any spectrum you look at. And one thing in particular that excites me about it, amongst some of the things that have already been mentioned too, is I think it has the opportunity to be kind of like the missing link, the missing ingredient with a lot of the marketing projects that we've all worked on for the past 10 to 15 years. For example, just thinking about like the attribution modeling problem. I'm sure some of you can identify, but I can't tell you how many presentations I've sat through for the past 10 years or so where people told me I could get to a model where I knew exactly what was happening and the exact customer journey that took people to the best path and made them most likely to convert. Well, I think that involves a level of analysis and picking up on micro signals that we as humans just miss a lot of the time. And if AI is good at one thing, in my experience, it's good at taking large amounts of information and putting that all together. So that's what I'm excited about.
Sorry, that was...
I'll wrap up. I'll double down on what I mentioned earlier. I think the pharma company or companies that look more like Netflix are the ones that will win. If they're using AI like on a totally different level, you don't see it, you don't hear it, you don't know it. It's just happening. And I think if your model looks more like that than like current state, those companies will win.
Panelists, thank you for your thought leadership, for your expertise today. Thank you.